All right, well, we're about to see who's going to not do and who's going to not don't.
Yep.
Coming up here in round number 15, it's winning in magic time. The last 2 rounds of every tournament are so very exciting. I'm going to send it on over to Riley and Mani with the call.
Thank you very much, Maria, and thank you, Frank, as well, for that excellent introduction to what we're about to see down in our feature match area. My name's Riley Nunn, and I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Mani Davudi. And Mani, we couldn't be more excited to send yet more players to our top 8, and it's going to be one of these contenders with their respective Bant Nadu decks. So let's head down to the feature match area and get underway without further delays. Now, Bant Nadu certainly the deck of the tournament, very, very dominant strategy here. What, in your mind, Mani, are the really key aspects of the mirror match?
I think one of them is just certainly access to Volatile Stormdrake, as Frank did mention at the desk. Something that all of the players at the player party seemed to echo was, if you have the Stormdrake, you are at an advantage in the mirror match. If you don't, you're at a disadvantage. And if the weekend is all about the mirror match, that may be the real mirror breaker.
And it's funny to think that, you know, just one single card in the 60, in the starting 60 could make such a difference. But it's not just one card, is it? Because Jason has access to cards like Court of Calling. Even something like Malevolent Rumble is going to make it easy to find that singleton one-of that can have such a huge difference. And so we could very well see this card, Volatile Stormdrake, be all the difference, make all the difference here.
Absolutely. And I will note that actually Jason is currently undefeated in the Bant Nadu mirror. 3-0 so far in the matchup, picking up a win the previous round against Samuel Party. While Carlos is undefeated in the Bant Nadu mirror, but has picked up a loss to 4-color Nadu earlier on day 1. So minor advantage to Jason there as well in terms of matchup familiarity, perhaps, and how to navigate it.
And here is the namesake card of the deck here. Jason playing Nadu on turn 2, thanks to the Arboreal Grazer here. So it's back over to Carlos, who has an Arboreal Grazer of his own. And a Nadu in hand as well. So we're firing on all cylinders for both players here, but it's Jason, I think, who has the advantage being on the play.
Yeah, I think Carlos needs to play Teferi to get rid of Jason's Nadu, because Jason has the Outrider Encore in hand, but Carlos opting not to, and combo assembled if this Court of Calling isn't able to deliver a 1-drop for Carlos that can disrupt it.
So Carlos, instead of doing stone nothing, maybe holding up that Beseiju to destroy a potential Shuko, sorry?
Yeah, and Shuko was not the pickup here.
Punished for it.
For Jason, instead having the Outrider. Of course, there are a lot more Shukos in the deck than the one of Outrider Encore, though, of course, there are ways to find the Outrider. And now this is problem territory for Carlos.
Well, now it honestly might just be all over, because with Jason having unfettered access to all of these Nadu triggers, we're going to see 8 fresh cards off the top at a minimum here.
Yep.
And it only gets worse from there, because if we can find something like a Spring Hut Nantuko, this is the point at which it becomes, you know, essentially set in stone. Yeah.
Because right now, this Rumble is going to be 4 more cards off the top. It also will make a spawn. So that spawn is 2 more targets as well.
And an extra mana.
Correct.
In case you don't hit the lands. Which we've actually seen on camera. We've seen a player, I can't remember who it was. Was it Jason, actually?
I don't believe so.
In a previous round, we saw someone attempt to, quote-unquote, go off and just whiffed on lands.
Yes, it was very close. And here, this looks significantly less close. I believe Calney Garden
will do it.
Could be the pickup here, though it does go to hand, so you don't have a way to put it into play immediately. If you do find something like another Arboreal Grazer...
I don't think Jason's played a land this turn. No.
You're right.
I don't know. I think that the way is clear here to play play the Calney Garden from hand as well. So look at this, firing on all cylinders. The deck is going off here.
I believe that Court of Calling will almost guaranteed lock it up.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're just going to have to wait to see this deck go through the motions here.
2, 3, 4, 5.
And actually, shifting Woodland was the play for Jason rather than the Calney Garden. But 5 means Springheart Nantuko. Now, one thing about the Nantuko is it is an enchantment. So Carlos could go for Beseiju removing the Nantuko while just giving Jason one Nadu trigger. But there are still a lot of Nadu picks left.
Yeah. And also another copy of Malevolent Rumble in hand here for Jason, which I'm sure will be able to be cast because of, well, not just the lands that are in play, but Boseiju, and the fact that there are still untargeted creatures.
I'm going to represent this with a die here, but there's going to be a trigger on the stack here. So I'm going to, so first Nadu trigger. So there's a Nadu trigger here with the Boseiju above it. Horde.
So active player, non-active player.
On top of that, Outrider.
Will result in the Nadu triggers and just resolving everything while the Nantuko is still in the play. Because much unlike Shuko, which is limited to sorcery speed equips, the Outrider is not. So Jason can actually just continue going off in response to this Boseiju if it would like. And as long as you keep creating more tokens, you just keep targeting. And that is fun. We enjoy Magic the Gathering.
We're going to see another Court of Calling here.
Probably for one. That'll get Sylvan Safekeeper to protect.
Right. Yep. So that was 4 mana or 4 Convoke mana spent on the cord here.
Targeting the Nantuko. Give a shrug.
And so now the Boseiju's ability will be countered because the Nantuko, the Spring Heart Nantuko, has a Shroud.
Yes, and this is Jason nearly guaranteed on its loop. It's going to be quite hard to miss from this position. It does play 2 copies of Endurance in this deck. So
do I need to let him finish? Or it's okay if I concede? You can concede, yeah. It's okay. Okay, if you later will concede to me if this happens, I will be happy with that. Okay.
Well, that's a very fair.
That is a very
fair resolution there to that game. Yep. And the thing is, in Carlos's position, you can't really be too salty about losing like this because you're also playing the same deck.
I mean, you could. It just wouldn't be very reasonable.
I guess you could.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, people who tend to get salty aren't necessarily the most reasonable of people. So, you know what, Carlos, be as salty as you like, my friend, if you're in this position. But no, look, Carlos seems to have taken that in stride. You lose these games sometimes, and that's just the way that it goes. But no, look, for Jason, that was a textbook example of exactly what this deck is trying to do. Yeah,
and really, Jason continuing to show its understanding of the deck and the matchup, saying, okay, yeah, your Boseiju's there. I'm going to continue just going off. We'll just do this at instant speed until I'm able to Court of Calling out a Safekeeper and protect a Nantuko. And there's really no worries.
Yeah. A lot of resilience into this Bant Nadu deck.
14.
As we head into game number 2, Carlos on 6 cards, Jason on the full 7 here. Shuko to open things up here for our Spaniard. And let's see what he goes searching for with this fetch land.
I believe there is a copy of Springheart Nantuko in Carlos's hand, alongside one other card. A lot more cards than I previously thought. I remember the Safekeeper, but yeah, a Halfling as well as a Safekeeper to join the party.
And here is the delighted Halfling.
Jason on the other side, finding the all-important piece in the Volatile Stormdrake, though of course with the Sylvan Safekeeper on the battlefield, that isn't a guarantee to take something. Jason could use it to cost Carlos a land here.
And while Sylvan Safekeeper is a very, very, it's a key piece of anti-disruption, it doesn't come for free. Especially in the early game. In the later game, you know, as we saw, Jason had 10,000 lands in play. It's not that much of a sacrifice to throw one away to protect a creature. But if you're doing it to someone on turn 2, doing someone on turn 3...
Yeah, it's a big cost. And typically, it is very costly to give someone an early Stormdrake because it's a 3/2 flyer that is aggressive. But in this sort of combo matchup where you can afford to take 5 hits from the Stormdrake and be completely fine, suddenly your opponent losing a land is looking like a much bigger prize.
Yes, indeed. Okay, a bit of a slower start to this game here, as Jason figures out what the move is. In hand, Malevolent Rumble, Springheart Nantuko, Volatile Stormdrake also, as we've mentioned, making up 2 drops here.
And
what are your thoughts here, Marty? Maybe a Malevolent Rumble and see what you can work with? No, it's going to be the Stormdrake. All right.
I do like this. I think you put the choice on Carlos to either give me your Safekeeper or you lose the land and I slow you down. Not considerably, considering there is a halfling on the board, but it is not negligible.
Mm-hmm.
You got it.
All right. So Jason will pay 1 energy here to keep the Safekeeper around and passes the turn back to Carlos.
And Carlos's hand has a Summoner's Pact, so this is going to be Nadu time with Shuko.
Shuko, so maybe it's Carlos's turn to go off here.
And Carlos has a Nantuko in hand, so it really is not going to take much for the game to just end here.
So we have 6 cards off the top here for Carlos with this Nadu.
All right, we go assembling the other way.
All right, let's have a look and see
It's like
what
I'm
Carlos
targeting
can
anyway.
put
Yeah,
together.
yeah, it's just Hexproof, not Shroud. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't play a land, okay?
Just
Carlos
checking.
confirming, hasn't played a land just yet.
On top.
Also checking the
Okay, what?
ability of the Stormdrake. It does have hexproof from triggered and activated abilities, I believe. Not Shroud, so can target it with Shuko.
Yeah.
And the reason that it has that ability, I'm sure, is that so you can't just get into a I steal your Stormdrake, your volatile Stormdrake, you steal mine, back and forth, back and forth.
Right.
The old Restoration Angel clause, flicker a non-angel creature.
Yep.
All right, but as it is now, we're going to see.
No, sorry.
Not quite.
You don't have to sacrifice it, mate. It's all right. Maybe that would actually balance Nadu a little better, hey?
All right. And
A Horizon Canopy off the top here.
I'm gonna use it. Yeah.
So we'll see how things develop from here. But Nadu in this position, exactly what you're wanting.
yeah, and I believe
so
with the
I-
Nantuko in hand, Carlos will be able to play that as we do just get the mana situation figured out.
All right, let's see what goes on here.
Okay.
Sorry.
1 green floating.
You tapped
and
this, but you didn't add mana, or?
Yeah, I mean, I have 2 mana and I'm gonna use just 1.
You're using one. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. Now I understand.
So using
Go ahead,
mana
yeah.
to put the Arboreal,
Yep.
Arboreal Grazer in play and representing the other green
Yes,
mana.
I did.
there.
Yeah. Now you're at 11?
Breeding Pool off the top as Nadu gets targeted again there, moving to the 2-target
Zone.
side of the
Yep.
zone, as you
An
would.
unofficial zone here. All right, Arboreal Grazer now looks to be moved across as well. Yes, indeed. Let's find something off the top. That was another Nadu by the look of things. Which, unusually, often you'll draw a second copy of a legendary creature and it's not that useful. Here, however, if you can get to 3 mana, it'll reset the Shuko equip.
I keep going, yeah?
It is
Triggers.
incredibly useful. And Carlos just checking, do I keep going? Because
Tried already.
just a little
Sorry.
close
Yeah.
to the full combo. And Jason now considering if this is the point where it is over.
All right, Dryad Arbor put to the front. Now, important to remember that doesn't tap for mana.
Correct. But it can get targeted. Okay, that was the Surveil from the Hedge Maze. All right, and that should be enough.
Because
Show me
this
that
is
you
this
have
is
possible
2
on your deck.
creatures as well. This is also is
I'll be
a
happy to do.
Yeah. Jason is just saying you have a loop. Show me the Thassa's Oracle in your deck, and I'm dead.
all right.
Which it is.
So we did see Jason return the favor there, just as Carlos said. If you'll concede to me in this position, then I'll concede to you in the position I'm in here.
Yep.
And we see these players go to game number 3 now. I will remind you, this is a win and in for top 8. If either one of these players takes out this game and this match, they're straight into the top 8 of Pro Tour Modern Horizons 3. So a lot on the line here for both of these players, particularly you would think for Jason, who missed out on sealing the deal at the Pro Tour last time and will be very happy to to make it all the way to the top 8 for a second time and a second chance at the championship.
Yeah, Jason missing top 8 in Chicago, getting the job done in Seattle, the previous event making the top 8, and now this is the opportunity to make it 2 in a row for Jason. Not only already an incredible accomplishment, but also Jason is one of the players in the Player of the Year race. So getting 2 top 8s in a row following a top 16, that is an incredible bid for that Player of the Year position.
And an incredible year.
Absolutely.
For Jason, regardless of the final result of that race as well. It's not often that we see such unbridled dominance here from a single player. Simon Nielsen has put together incredible strings like this as well. Nathan Stoyer as well. You know, these runs can make a player's career.
Yep. And for Jason, who started playing in 2017, this feels like just the beginning of his career.
All right. Back to Carlos now with this delighted halfling into a Sylvan Safekeeper and a Shuko, so setting up nicely. Jason's draw a little awkward. We don't want to see the Outrider Encore put on the battlefield like this typically, you know. Running it out when you've got it is fine, but that's not your plan A, I suppose.
A little awkward, but Nadu off the top, and it might just be GG.
Well, that'll do it. All right, okay, well, I'll just serve myself up a delicious plate of my own words here because all the awkwardness is gone as we see Nadu
right off the top
hit the battlefield, and now we are off
Nantuko
to the
hand,
races.
And that's one land. Have a forest. Jason is now playing very quickly, as that'll be almost certainly GG. Can play the Nantuko now, and we'll have 7 Nadu remaining. Had 2 more Nantukos in hand as well. Yep.
And
all right,
so
step 1.
odds on here to find more lands in order to make more insects with the Nantuko. There it is. Urza Saga is going to make a bug, which then obviously presents another target for the Nadu.
Keep going
and
to
the Kaldi Garden is terrific.
It.
There we go. This should be more than enough here as a Dryad Arbor comes into play. Once again, another bug. Once again, another target for the Nadu, for the Shuko. And it's all over but the crying now, Marty. It looks like Jason Yee will be in the top 8 of Pro Tour Modern Horizons 3.
The back-to-back for Jason from Team Sanctum of All. You see Carlos nodding the head, and Carlos knows that it's over.
Is the concession from Carlos, taking it in his stride, you have to say, and Jason Yee will be appearing in the feature match area on Sunday. What a result for a player who has come and really stamped a huge mark of authority on this game.
Yeah, just incredible performance after performance from Jason, showing understanding of both limited formats, quickly becoming somebody that the pro community looks to for understanding and really digesting how to approach limited formats, but also just proving mastery in constructed as well. It really has shown that they belong here at the top level of the game. Top 16 into a top 8, into a top 8. Not to be mentioned that this run all began with a win last year in Las Vegas in the 100K Limited Open. So all the way going back a year, it has just been result after result after result. And with the World Championship coming up in this year, things are looking quite good for Jason Yee.
All right, well, we'll see what comes of things in the result in the wake of that match. And the good news here, Marnie, is we've got more Magic, more potential winning in Magic to share with the viewers in a very short amount of time. Maria and Frank are standing by to set up our next match.
More winning in Magic on the way with Javier Dominguez sitting at 11-3 versus Tomasz Sodomirski at 10-4.
Javier Dominguez is playing Jeskai control. His list doesn't use Prismatic Ending or Solitude, but it is instead based more on the blue pitch spells. 4 Subtlety and 4 Force of Negation main. He will lock up top 8 for sure with a win. Tomasz Sodomirski, better known as Sodek, has a lot of experience with graveyard strategies in Modern. He's one of the 3 Living End players in the field, trying to cascade into Living End and then return all of his cyclers to the battlefield.
Will Living End live to fight another day, or will Jeskai take control? Find out after this.
I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Canada,
Indiana,
Brazil, Nebraska,
Florida,
Colorado,
New York,
California.
My favorite part about the MagicCon is just the friendship and fellowship.
The community is absolutely fantastic. Everybody is super friendly.
The diversity.
The art, the competition,
Chaos.
Welcome back to coverage of Pro Tour Modern Horizons 3, my friends, and thank you so much for being with us as we get closer and closer to rounding out our top 8 in preparation for the final day of competition tomorrow. My name's Riley Knight, and I'm joined by Mani Devoody. And Mani, what we're going to watch now is a win-in for one of our players, Javier Dominguez, who is on what is certainly my favourite deck in the tournament, Jeskai Control. Now, for his opponent, it's not quite the same. They've got a mismatch record, I think, due to a draw. And so, as a result, it is a win-in for Javier. A lot of pressure on this bloke, but this is a guy who's obviously, been around the traps. He knows his way around this sort of high-stakes, high-tension gameplay, and hopefully he'll be in a good position to succeed here.
Yeah, as we typically see in the later rounds of the tournament, incredibly high-stakes matches. But as things whittle down, there are less and less people on the same record. So here we see Javier as the third 11-3. We did just watch two 11-3s face each other. He's getting paired down against a 10-4.
Yeah.
For Tomasz, this is not a win and in, but it is more or less a win and stay alive, as if he does lose and fall down to 10-5, his chances of making top 8 will more or less be over, which means this match is a do or die for him.
Yes, apologies. I did think there was a draw separating these two players, but no, it is just a straight up pair down situation for Javier Dominguez, who we've seen in the feature match area already a fair bit over the weekend. It's a pleasure to watch this bloke play. He is a master of his craft, of course, the 2018 World Champion, and the face of the card Fervent Champion as a result. But here he's playing a very different deck. You wouldn't find Fervent Champion in this list that Javier Dominguez has brought to bear. It is a slow and lumbering control deck that's been juiced up by a number of new Modern Horizons 3 cards.
It absolutely has. Wrath of the Sky is really leading the charge here. But one thing I want to mention already is Tomasz, who is one of 3 players, as Frank Carson mentioned, on Living End. He has put 1 Living End into the graveyard by surveilling on turn 1 using the Hedge Maze, and there's a second copy in his hand. So half of the Living Ends in the deck are out of commission right now.
All right, well, that's something that Javier is going to be able to keep in mind here if he ever gets a look at Tomasz's hand. I don't know why he would, to be honest, given the deck he's playing, but he'll be at least glad to know that he doesn't have to fight through the one in the graveyard. Now, in terms of this matchup, Marty, do you have thoughts on potentially who's favoured or what the key things we're going to have to look out for here are?
I would say that historically the control deck has been favored. One of the tools that we've seen Living End in the past use to get around the control deck is Violent Outburst, being able to play at instant speed on Javier's turn to go for the Living End and have the ability to use Force of Negation as a proper free backup spell. Now that you are forced to cascade at more or less sorcery speed on your turn, those same cute lines aren't available to you. Something like a Teferi becomes a lot more devastating, as you do have to spend your turn removing it and then untap or build up enough mana where you can remove it through usually a counter spell and then be able to do Living End things. So if Javier has any sort of decent draw involving counter spells and or Teferi, it's an uphill battle for Tomasz.
And it also just opens all these other avenues. Not only does it unlock Force of Negation as a meaningful piece of interaction against a quote-unquote sorcery speed, ardent plea or what have you, it also means that Javier can do what we're seeing here, tap down. Yep. And when your opponent had 3 mana available previously, you couldn't tap down for, instant speed cantrips, ways to cycle through your deck, whatever, because you always had to keep up your counter magic. So there are a range of small edges that all add up to quite a significant shift in the way that this matchup plays out. It's a good observation you make, Marnie, the fact that even just something like a Teferi, right, whose static ability prevents you from going off at instant speed, you can't, oh, sorry, at all, you can't cast a card with Cascade when a Teferi is on the battlefield, slows things down enormously. So now, is Tomasz taking a different approach here, thinking, oh, well, I'll just kill you with a subtlety? Like, is this what the living end player begins to think about?
Absolutely, and the biggest thing that needs to be mentioned here is Javier's stuck on 2 lands.
Yeah.
So Javier is missing land drops, and Tomasz is able to build up enough lands in a deck that is typically lower on lands, playing only 15 lands plus some land cyclers to go get more lands, already at 5 mana, meaning that he is able to start deploying these creatures as threats.
We do talk about how there is a... Oh, no land again. This is a disaster for Javier here. There's another point I want to make about the fact that we've talked up Wrath of the Skies, right, as being a fantastic answer in this modern format where most of the threats are really cheap. There's a great diversity of them as well. But it's funny because in this matchup, you'd actually just prefer Supreme Verdict.
Yeah.
Because trying to get enough mana to destroy the generous Ents and all the other high-cost creatures that you cycle back into play with the Living End makes things very difficult, because Wrath of the Skies, you know, isn't always able to produce or spend 6, 7 energy.
Javier misses again, drawing invert polarity for the turn there. Had to blow one of his Force of Negations to a subtlety to get rid of a generous Ent, and now finally drawing the 3rd land, we'll have to go for Teferi perhaps, but we'll see the bad news of a Force of Negation on the other side.
Oh dear, yeah, this is not going well for our former world champion here. Tomasz Sodomirski has benefited immensely from just drawing lands, whereas Javier, the deck that really is very mana hungry, the control decks, as we know, need to hit their land drops. And with just 22 lands and 2 Lorien revealed, it's not a guarantee, although Tune the Narrative certainly helps in that regard, but Javier, not the mana that he would have been hoping for here as he gets hit down to 9.
Yeah, and one thing that does need to be mentioned as well is something that we've talked about before, which is that Modern has sort of changed with the new Modern Horizons 3 set. And one of the things that we do see control decks doing is they have started shaving down onto fairies in order to play more Flages. So Javier only playing 2 copies of Teferi Time Raveler in order to fit 3 copies of Flage into his deck. And while that is good in a lot of matchups, it is not great in this matchup specifically.
Okay, so we shuffle away those cards that were cascaded across, and now the cascade trigger from the Shardless Agent resolves, casts a Living End, which will see the generous Ent.
All right, so...
Oh, sorry, a Force of Negation removes the Living End, excuse me.
If Javier can draw a land here, he has the Supreme Verdict. There is the last Living End resolving right now.
Okay.
Javier brings back a subtlety.
I have 2 and triggers. Yes, 2 resolves. Yes.
Well, this is actually very interesting now, yeah, because that's all. Is that all 4 of them?
He drew a Wrath of the Skies.
Oh,
that is 3 of them, with the 4th one being the last card in Tomasz's hand.
Okay. Well, the Flage will stem the bleeding a little bit, but this it's not quite lethal.
It's pretty darn close, but not quite lethal.
Yeah. And the other thing is, once the Living End deck gets to this point of the game, they just start drawing their 5 drops and 6 drops, and then just like casting them.
Yeah, and I think there's another Ent in Tomasz's hand, so even if Javier is able to draw the 4th land and go Supreme Verdict or the One Ring, he's going to be so low that he can't really afford to draw too many cards with the One Ring, and Tomasz has a rebuild of an Ent in hand.
Disaster scenario here for Javier, as we see an instant block with the
I believe goes to 2?
Goes to 2 life, correct. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
This was not anything that Tomasz needed to do. He's sort of opening. He takes
Shock
2,
die.
goes to 0. Oh, Javier. Oh, absolute heartbreak here.
Oh.
But Tomasz there, playing out that other Ent, was a little dangerous, because the only card he really loses to there is Supreme Verdict.
Yeah?
Well, I say loses to. The only card that really sort of, puts...
Gives Javier another turn.
Yeah,
Supreme Verdict.
A slight speed bump there for our Polish player. But nope. As it is, Javier goes down in game number 1. So well done to Tomasz. He is one step closer to keeping his top 8 dream alive here. I'll remind you, of course, that Javier Dominguez is fighting here to join 3 players who have already been confirmed as playing in the top 8. That is Noah Ma, of course, Eli Cassis, and we just saw Jason Yee lock up a slot as well earlier in this round. Will we find a 4th here in this match between Javier Dominguez and Tomasz Sodomirski? We will find out before very much longer.
Yeah, Javier, much better hand, has lands, has a Teferi that he is able to play on turn 3. The question is how much he is going to respect the existence of Force of Negation from Jason. In the past, we have typically seen the philosophy for the control decks be just run it out there. Either you are costing your opponent a lot of tempo in cards and potentially putting them far enough back where they're not able to build up that critical mass or resolve a living end, or you have a Teferi in play and you're making life awkward. So the philosophy in the past has been run it out there. But that was when you had 4 Teferis. So I'm curious if that philosophy changes a bit when Javier only has access to 2 Teferis now.
Given how important it is in the matchup.
Right.
Yeah.
Will he play longer, play slower to try to set up, maybe try to find a 4th land for a mystical dispute, thinking that may be the point. So we'll see what his hand is here.
Okay, let's have a look.
Well, let's try to have a look.
Let's attempt to have a look.
Let's do our best to have a look.
Let's do our best to have a look.
Yeah.
We can agree on that.
Yeah, if we do our best to have a look, what could go wrong?
All right, here it is. Run it straight out. And let's see what Tomasz has to say about it. Not very much. So upstairs, downstairs, what do you do here?
I would go down. Tomasz has access to 2 Sink into Stupors in hand. One of the only new additions to the deck from Modern Horizons. A land that also allows you to interact with things like Teferi. But considering you have to play those at sorcery speed, and Tomasz cannot do any living end things right now, we may see a few turns of Tomasz going, bounce your Teferi, hope I found a Force of Negation to counter it on the way down, and do a dance back and forth.
But as it is, passes it back, and you think firmly now the advantage is Javier's. He's got a Teferi on 5 counters. He's untapped, and he's ready to rumble. We're going to go down this time to draw a card. No targets, obviously, for the ability. Finds the 1 ring, but I imagine at this point Javier will be very happy to just sort of sit tight. And
I'm running out the ring.
Are you just playing it straight away?
I'm running it out.
All right.
Javier has a Force of Negation. What is Tomasz going to do? Tomasz can't do anything on Javier's end step. He'll have to untap and play some.
I saw the subtlety. He's got a Force as well.
He sure does.
Oh my goodness, Eagle Eye Money over here. He's got the scoop.
I think Javier is going to play this ring, and this game is going to be pretty close to over.
All right. Well, Control fans rejoice as we see this deck doing what it's designed to do this time, namely hitting its land drops. And
I can do things, you can't do things, and also I will never run out of things to do.
Yes, I'm going to draw a ton of cards. We've seen Javier in previous matches. How many burden counters did he get to? 6, I think, at one point?
I think it was 6. He does play Minamo, so he was doubling down quite a bit, but it was truly delightful to see Javier go just digging.
Yeah. Excavating.
Beautiful.
Earth moving.
Beautiful mystical dispute drawn for Tomasz. Absolutely just blank card at the moment. Sink into Stupor on Teferi plus an untapped blue land is representing a potential mystical dispute, but I think Javier just counters this and doesn't leave any opportunity for that, and we're done here, I would say.
Dress Down is not a hugely important card in this matchup, so you may as well just use it to keep your Teferi safe. It's going to minimize the risk of anything bad happening. And so now we see Teferi go upstairs. The ring also drawing 2 cards for the former world champion, Javier Dominguez, getting closer and closer to a game to win here to even things up and continue his attempt to make it into our top 8.
Yeah, you see Javier briefly considering casting Advanced Magistrate there. Oh, 2 cards. Let's just wait for a judge call. So Javier briefly considers casting Advanced Magistrate there. He has 2 counter spells in hand, so with that Plains, he's not able to cast both of them. But also, there's no real reason to cast the Magistrate. There is a subtlety. He can afford to just pass the turn, saying, I'm going to protect my Teferi anyways. The subtlety lets me add a bigger threat to the board, and then play the Magistrate next turn.
Yeah, he's got an invert polarity. He's he's got a counterspell. He's got all sorts of business going on here.
He's got everything.
Javier is not in a position where he needs to take any risks.
Right, exactly.
All right, so a situation here for Tomasz, I would imagine, again, this is just speculation, but most of the time the way this will go is that the extra card that was looked at will be shuffled away if the players don't have any reason to know where any cards in the deck are. The card that was on top will be drawn, and I believe Tomasz will probably get a warning and be asked to play a little bit more carefully. And as obviously there was no material advantage gained from that having happened, we can continue the game on without too many issues. All right, Sinker to Stupor is not going to resolve. The Teferi stays on the battlefield, 3 cards off the 1 ring, and there is the Flage. This is the #1 win condition here for this Jeskai deck, and we'll see we'll see how quickly Javier wants to start deploying his win condition here.
I love the way Javier plays the game of Magic. Just like, plus this guy on Teferi, just put a counter on this little guy. Just, you know, the little guy doing just infinite amounts of work. Yeah, Javier probably going to discard Flage to hand size here and just escape it next turn. Tomasz first says I'm going to crack a fetch land, so both players have 15. If I didn't know better, I would call this an even game, but unfortunately I do know better, and this is far from an even game.
It's often the way when someone who's not familiar with Magic will come and, into the game and, oh, who's winning?
Yeah.
Oh, well, they're on 2. Oh, I'm on 2, they're on 15. Oh, so you're losing? Well, no, I've got 7 cards in hand, 3 of them are counter spells.
Yeah, definitively I am winning.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's certainly the case here, irrespective of life totals. And look, Javier's life total is probably going to go down here thanks to the 1 ring, but...
oh, invert polarity?
Oh, baby. Are we going to see
your
it?
5/7, my 5/7?
Our 5/7.
I win. Okay.
4, 5, 6, I win. You want to roll it or do I roll it?
All right, here we go. High roll for Javi.
6.
Oh,
baby.
mine. The march of the Ents comes across to Javier Dominguez's side of things. This Ent
Your food token, my food token.
This Ent being very generous
Very
in
generous.
offering its loyalty to Javier instead of Tomasz.
This Ent is not very loyal, actually.
No. Generous, certainly.
Very generous.
Loyal? Not so much.
Not so much.
Not so much.
Food token cracked. Javier recouping some life from the ring. Now has a clock. And this game is super over.
I wonder if, just from a flavor standpoint, obviously the ring and its burden counters representing the burden of carrying the ring. The life loss being the cost that you pay for bearing the ring, which is offset by eating food. Is that why the hobbits were resistant to the burden the ring put on them? Because they just loved a good meal.
You know what, Riley? I think that at this moment, as we watch a match potentially for top 8, you are finally asking the important questions.
Important question. Javier Dominguez wins game number 2. We have a decider here between these two players, all locked up at 1-1. Javier Dominguez will finally have the chance to secure his slot in the top 8. After going down in game number 1, this is it for our former world champion. Tomasz Sodomirski mulliganing to 6. Javier on 7 on the draw this time. Let's have a look at his hand. Drannith Magistrate in there, Marnie. We do love to see that for Javi, but let's see what Tomasz has brought to bear here.
He's got some tools, because I did see a Grief in hand. I did see a Force of Negation in hand. So already more disruptive elements than the previous game for Tomasz. We do see the Misty Rainforest going to get a Hallowed Fountain, and then the Generous Ent being forced cycled, or land cycled, to go get this breeding pool. I believe it is forest cycling.
It is forest cycling. Yeah, bit of a shortcut taken there for Tomasz to save the double shuffle. And the breeding pool coming into play untapped. That'll cost Tomasz 2 life, but that's a resource he's pretty willing to spend. Here's a Waker of Waves now.
Is that a whale, Riley?
I think it's a whale.
Okay.
I'm not 100% if it's a whale. Oh, does it have flying? Maybe it's not.
Yeah. Could you just check what the Waker of Waves is?
It is a whale.
It's on the screen.
It's a whale, but doesn't have flying.
So is it a whale?
Very strange.
Whale, whale, whale. What have we here?
Okay. And as you can see, most whales that have been printed in Magic, at least 25% of them have fly. Well, that's got a different form of evasion.
Yeah.
This one looks like it should fly.
Shout out to Caroline Party, our card spotter, as she is just showing you all of the whales that do not have flying, and some of the whales that do.
Yes, indeed. And once again, in Win and In Pro Tour Top 8 Magic, we are answering the
important
real
questions, yeah.
Marnie. That's right. All right, Drannith Magistrate's certainly not a whale, as it doesn't fly, but it certainly is a card that has flying colours in this matchup, preventing Cascade from casting the Living End, because it is Cascade attempts to cast a card from exile, which the Drannith Magistrate says, no.
Definitively not the hand. And
Yes,
I believe it's other than their hands.
Interesting thing about this card is that it is asymmetrical. Often with these cards, like Drannith Magistrate, the Hate Bears style cards, they often affect both people. Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, probably the best example, but the Drannith Magistrate, not so.
Well, you see, Riley, that's because those Hate Bear style cards were printed 11 years ago, and Drannith Magistrate was printed 4 years ago. And this is 2020's Magic.
Yes, I see.
Yes.
Hate Bears no longer quite as hateful.
They are hateful.
Oh, they're more directed in there.
Yes, their hate is very much channeled.
It's a focus.
Yes.
I see. All right, well, Drannith Magistrate hits the battlefield here. And is certainly going to stymie Tomasz Sodomirski's plans. See what he wants to do about it.
Tomasz still has that grief, has a mystical dispute, as well as the sink into stupor and the force of negation. And one way to find a living end in the Shardless Agent, the big issue is, first, the Magistrate needs to leave the battlefield.
Tomasz doesn't have a huge number of ways to do that. There's Brazen Borrower out of the sideboard. There are those two cards we talked about, 2 copies of Sink into Stupor, the card that we saw earlier. And here is Teferi. And this is not an ideal situation for Tomasz. He is more or less priced into casting that Mystical Dispute. He can't let Teferi hit the battlefield. We saw how decisive Teferi was in game number 2, Marnie.
Yeah, this is...
So it's a good thing for Tomasz that he's got the counterspell.
Yes, it is a great thing for Tomasz to have the counterspell. And as we've seen, you're not going to hold on to it if you're in Javier C. You are going to continue running it out there. You're going to continue asking the questions.
All right, Grief. Pitching Grief. Let's have a look at what you're working with here, says Tomasz. And what Javier is working with seems to be a Subtlety, a Supreme Verdict, at least 1, 2 fetch lands. 3 lands in total.
A Steam Vents and 2 fetches, I believe.
So, had the option to Subtlety the Grief, but opts not to.
I mean, it's the difference between losing both of your cards and losing one of your cards, and the Grief going back to the top of the deck, potentially. So, I think it makes sense in Javier's position to just let this go.
Not a great hand here, though, for the Spaniard.
Not ideal.
Especially as that Supreme Verdict, he's not going to cast that when there's a Drannith Magistrate in play.
Yeah, the biggest issue right now is if Tomasz takes the Verdict, which he likely will, and then passes the turn, and Javier draws nothing, then Javier is almost certainly getting living ended, because Tomasz can go on your end step, sink into Stupor your Magistrate, untap, cast my...
Cascade card, Ardent Plea,
yes.
Whatever you've got.
Shardless Agent in this specific... never mind.
Ooh, off the top, another
off the tizzy top. That's... there were a lot of good draws for Javier. Let's not act like that was, the one of best draw, but...
And he is playing 3.
Yes.
He is playing 3.
This does prevent Tomasz's only line to getting that Cascade effect next turn.
All right, well, the Magistrate's Court is in session here. As both of these cards, very difficult for Tomasz to fight his way through. All right, Force of Negation, Living End.
Yeah, Tomasz just drew a blank piece of paper in the form of a Living End. And Riley, here we get to something that you've been very excited about, which is the value of these Surveil lands.
Oh,
in
baby.
These modern decks. These cards have just done so much to level up the modern format.
They really have, and in ways that I think a lot of people weren't expecting them to. There was a little bit of hype about them. They, a lot of people saying, they'll do some good work, but where they're really at their best is in linear combo decks, obviously. Decks that are searching for one single particular card that they really need to find, but they're also really, really good in slower controlling decks that don't always use their mana every turn.
think Javier just drew Lorien Revealed. Did you know Lorien Revealed has some hidden text?
As a 5-mana sorcery?
If you pay 5
we're
mana
going to
for
see it here. Oh, no,
you will
not.
draw 3 cards.
And the
sometimes.
hidden mode on Force of Negation.
It costs 3 mana.
Just a counterspell. Just
Wow.
a bad cancel negate card here.
Look, one bad draw spell deserves one bad counter spell.
It seems so. It's almost like we're playing limited. I'll pay 5 for a draw 3. Oh, no, I'll pay 3 for a counterspell.
Yeah.
Modern in 2024, Exalted Viewer. What are your thoughts on that?
I think Tomasz is going to play a Shardless Agent.
Yeah. Just a 2/2.
Yeah.
Just the old grey ogre.
Oh, do you have 2 1/3s? I will have a 2/2.
Yeah. Yep. This is just a game of limited.
Yeah.
It's just a game of limited.
Consider your clock halved.
Yeah. All right, so you can choose not to cast the Living End, of course. So we're just going to have a 3-mana 2/2 run out in the face of these 1/3s.
Lorien Revealed should be exiled, by the way. Not currently relevant, but Force of Negation does exiles. And considering Javier does play Flage, that is relevant. So hopefully it gets caught or it does not end up being relevant, of course. We are on a delay, so we can't immediately correct it by spawning it. But hopefully it is caught.
All right. Up to Javier now. Is he going to
On
line up
you.
some attacks? Get him in there.
And look, there's a subtlety in Javier's hand, so soon this clock will actually be real. But for now, the ones march on.
The other card that's been drawn from the sideboard here in Javier's hand is Consigned to Memory, another really nice one that can counter the Cascade trigger.
Yeah, triggered abilities.
Yep.
So often in this limited format, we are used to seeing Consigned to Memory go after go after Eldrazi's and other such colorless effects.
In this limited format that we're watching right now, exactly.
In this limited format, correct.
Yeah.
This is limited.
Yeah.
All right, hold on. Something's happening.
All right.
Tomasz is going for Dismember. We still know Tomasz has that Consign. And then, if both of these resolve, Tomasz can clear the way of the Magistrates. So the big question for Javier is, do you want to fight this Dismember, or do you want to pass, let Tomasz do everything, and then use your Consign to counter that all-important Cascade trigger and really blow Tomasz out?
So this is a Dismember targeting the Magistrate, right?
Correct.
Okay. And the other one's been blocked.
The other one's been blocked.
Okay. 2 mana, 3 mana.
I think Javier is considering hard casting a Force of Negation here.
Yep.
And by countering this, he is once again telling Tomasz that, hey, you got to remove 2 of these.
And Tomasz is going to bounce the Dismember back to his hand.
Okay, that is a choice when you find yourself at 5 life.
Okay.
But I can't say I'm a big fan of it.
Maybe the Drannith Magistrates are going to get there after all. Their little one damage per turn clock. All right.
One could argue they've already got him there.
Okay, so this is a Dismember. Put Tomasz himself down to 1.
Yep. And 1 Cascade effect, 1 blank, just absolutely trash piece of cardboard.
Yeah.
For Tomasz. And for Javier, Flage would do it. Passing the turn and playing a Subtlety would do it. Gently breathing in Tomasz's direction would do it.
Here. We could be just seconds away from Javier Dominguez locking up his slot in the top 8 of this Pro Tour. Came heartbreakingly close.
9th place.
Last time. Will he do one better this time and find himself in the top 8 of this Pro Tour? End step, flash in a flying Subtlety here. In it comes, and Tomasz offers the hand in concession. Javier Dominguez makes it to the top 8 of Pro Tour Modern Horizons 3. Javier is not a man who lets us guess at what he's feeling at any time. He is a passionate lover of this game, a lover of victory, and I'm very pleased to see him in the top 8 of this event, Marty. Look at that face. A second chance for him. Someone who has already achieved such greatness in this game. I can't wait to see him play on Sunday.
Yeah, it is always a delight to watch him play. He has been definitively one of the best players in the game for 7 years now. if not more. And he just continues putting up result after result in impressive fashions. Look at that run, going to the fellow team handshake and country mates. It's really just a delight to see somebody who is such a great icon of the game continue putting up results.
Also, just a really lovely bloke as well. He's someone who there are pros that you come across that just have always got time for you. You know, they'll stand around, they'll have a chat. How's the day going? They'll talk to you about their decks, whatever else. And Javier is just a very generous soul when it comes to his time, when it comes to his perspective. Always got a smile on his face. And I can actually share one of his, I don't know if it's a secret, he told me it anyway, so it's not that much of a secret. One of the secrets of his success, right? Would you like to know what it is?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sleep.
Oh.
He told me that he always makes sure the night before a big tournament, he tries to get like a solid 12, 13. He's in bed at like 7 p.m. For a Spaniard, that's not even dinner time, right? He sleeps and sleeps and sleeps to make sure that his brain is in tip-top form. And this, I think, is one of the reasons he's just well-rested before every tournament.
I don't buy it.
You don't buy it?
As somebody that's been functioning on a solid, 4 or 5 hours of sleep, I'm doing just fine.
Well, look.
I could also be making the top 8 of these Pro Tours. I think he's...
With a third of the amount of sleep.
I think he's full of it.
Well, for some it works, for others, different strokes for different folks. We're going to jump straight back into our feature match area now for another match here. We're going to get across Brian Boss and Colin Rountree. Now, these players at 10 and 4, Marty, X and 5 more or less removes you from contention. A win here is not a guarantee of a top 8 berth by any means, but certainly a loss here will be consigning one of these players and their tournament aspirations to the scrap heap. Let's head into game number 2 here with Brian Boss having taken out game number 1. And perhaps as we do so, Marnie, we can have a chat about the decks. Bant Nadu versus Gruul Prowess.
Yeah, just your everyday matchup of the most played deck in the room against Prowess.
Against not that, yes.
Yeah. We've seen this explosive deck in the hands of Brian Boss this weekend in the feature match area, and it has looked pretty darn sweet. We've seen exactly what it is capable of, just being able to put massive amounts of damage together out of nowhere, thanks to the combination of haste creatures, free spells, and cards like Assault Strobe. So this deck has looked quite cool. And considering Brian is here at 10 and 4, certainly must be doing at least decent against Nadu.
Well, you'd think so, given how dominant the Nadu deck has been across the weekend so far. We can, I'll bring up his record here, Marnie, and we can have a chat about exactly what Brian Boss's path to this situation has been. He has picked up a couple of losses in Constructed. He lost against Jeskai Control, but seems to actually be undefeated at this stage against... Oh, he actually hasn't played it too much. He's only played against Bant Nadu twice before this.
He did pick up one loss in day 1 against Mark Peral.
Oh, excuse me.
I believe, of Spain.
All right, okay.
So,
even Stevens so far.
Yeah, definitely managing to get the job done sometimes. Otherwise, other times not so much. And this is going to be a test for the deck, as we do see Colin Rountree on the other side, down a game, but already has a turn 2 Nadu on the battlefield. So can Brian either win this turn, or remove the Nadu, or hope that Colin misses? Because I did see Outrider Encore in Colin's hand.
17 to 16.
Uh-oh. But as we look at the mana for Colin here, double green. Oh, hello, Harsh Mentor. There's a name I've not heard.
Bring up the Mentor.
In a long time. So you might remember, very hateful card all the way back from Ammon Ket in 2017. Whenever an opponent activates an ability, if it isn't a mana ability, Harsh Mentor deals 2 damage to that player. Now, this means that you can equip the Shuko here and there, maybe a little bit, but you can't go off like you would otherwise.
Yeah, it is costly to try to go off through a Harsh Mentor, and Colin had the Misty Rainforest, but you know what is an activated ability of a land that isn't a mana ability, Riley?
What's that?
It's sacrificing a fetch land.
Oh, baby.
Oh, baby.
Oh, so that's going to cost you.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to cost you a crisp three life there.
Oh, that's painful.
Oh, ouchie poo. That's not nice.
Ouchie poo. Riley Knight, ladies.
Yes, indeed.
Gents.
All right, in comes the Monastery Swift Spear here, and we know the explosive power of the of the Prowess deck. It's already been given double strike with this Assault Strobe. So currently, as it stands, a 2/3 double striker.
A very innocuous 2-power creature.
The little thing that gets attached to it.
The token aura gives it trample, yes.
Got it, thank you.
Confirming what the monstrous monster roll from Monstrous Rage does, which is it doesn't give trample when you attach that aura token to the Monastery Swift Sphere.
So one Monstrous Rage in this situation would essentially give the Monastery Swift Spear +4/+2 and trample when you factor in the prowess, but would add an effective 8 to its total damage output thanks to the Assault Strobe.
Is that good?
Yes, it is, Marnie. It's very good.
Okay, can you do the math for me, please?
Don't like where that sentence headed. Didn't like that, to be honest.
Well, you started speaking the language of numbers and then didn't follow
it just
through.
Takes me back to year 10 with Dr. G and him trying to explain sin, cos, and tan and all this other nonsense that I was too busy playing Tetris on my TI-84 graphics calculator to notice. I don't want to go back to those days, my friend. All right, we do have Monstrous Rage here, putting a Monster Roll token onto the Monastery Swift Spear. This means that endurance is going to be chomped up.
Oh, yeah. So that is a 6-power creature, which means, I believe, 8 damage going through to Colin Rountree's face.
It's a lot, especially when a fetch land costs you 3, not to mention the land that you go and fetch with the fetch land. And things
this
are
is fine. No, Colin's got this.
He's got it?
Yeah.
Oh, man, he's seen the line.
Well, here's the thing.
Okay.
I'm not doing any math, so to me it looks like we have a Nadu combo, and it's just game.
Numbers aren't real. They can't hurt you.
Yeah. From what I have seen, if you are the Nadu player and you have Nadu, and then you get an activation source like the Outrider, you win the game.
The problem is, Marty, right? Your opponents are also allowed to play cards.
What?
Yes.
Since when?
Well, since it's been a while. That's been the case for quite a while.
Can I please talk to the head judge about this?
I don't know. Maybe get Richard Garfield on the blower. He's the only person who's going to be able to fix this problem.
Okay.
I think.
Can somebody please stop this match and get Richard Garfield on the phone?
I'll have a chat with Dr. Garfield at the soonest available opportunity. I'll let you know what he thinks.
Thank you.
All right?
Thank you.
All right. Harsh Mentor is really a thorn in Colin's side here. He goes down to just 6 life, and with a monstrous Monastery Swift Spear and a Harsh Mentor ruling the battlefield, even the mighty Nadu is in dire straits.
I still think Colin's got this.
I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm trying to be gentle about it, but I think he is up a certain waterway without a certain paddling implement.
This is just not how Magic is supposed to work. You're supposed to have a Nadu, you're supposed to have a source, and then you're supposed to win. Okay. This is what I've come to expect.
He's just really committed to the bit, everyone. I can't do anything about it at this stage. He's got the blinkers on and is full steam ahead.
I mean, I guess we're dead.
I think so. I think so. Outrider Encore. Now, in this situation, without that Harsh Mentor, you'd be aces. It'd be golden. You start, activating the Outrider Encore. You start getting cards off the Nadu, but you can do that exactly twice before you're dead to the Harsh Mentor.
Now, here's the thing.
All right, now it's finally we're getting the thing.
I have heard. This is a serious thing.
Oh, is it really?
It is.
I'm doing a hard pivot.
I am actually going to be an expert for a moment. I have heard from Sean Goddard that using priority active player, non-active player orders, you can win with an Outrider Encore in response at instant speed on your opponent's turn with a Harsh Mentor by just continuing to respond to the activation.
Oh, you never let it resolve.
You just never let any of them resolve until you have a way to deal with it.
Just opponents, yeah.
So there is a way.
So
I'm not even going to begin to say that this is the world in which this is going to happen.
All right.
But if Colin is aware of this ability, maybe some cool things could happen here. I don't know.
All right. The deck has to be built in a certain way to do that, is my understanding.
Correct.
And this is not a Thassa's Oracle build, so presumably it does have the ability to go off at instant speed.
Yes.
Keep that on top.
Let's see if Colin can do it then.
I
Maybe you were right all along. Maybe we are just fine.
look, let's not begin to say that I was right about anything. There's no world in which I was right. Okay.
You stand by none of the statements you've made
Correct.
now, previously,
Absolutely
or indeed
zero.
in the future.
You cannot prove that I have said anything about Colin having a chance here.
No, certainly not. We don't have hours of recorded content of you making all sorts of outlandish statements about Magic the Gathering. Anyway, here we go with the Monastery Swiftspear getting in, and Delighted Halfling thrown under this particular bus. Buffers Colin's life total to the tune of 2 life remaining. Colin in dire straits here.
Does Colin have the 1 ring?
Okay, this looks to be a Chord of Calling.
Okay.
Chord of Calling for 2.
Stormdrake take the Harsh Mentor?
Stormdrake take the wheel here.
Give me that Mentor.
And we're going to see, oh, it's going to get hexproof. Oh, this is not going to resolve. Oh, Blossoming Defense here to ruin Colin Rountree's day. And this may be it for the Bant Nadu player on your screen. Brian Boss, I like to think at this stage he has a facial expression like he did in his photo, just staring his opponent down as he takes out the game, and indeed the match with Gruul prowess. Look at him go.
I think I'm ready to admit that Colin doesn't have this.
Are you ready now? Now the victory screen has appeared on the the stream.
I think I've come to terms with the fact that Nadu did not, in fact, win that game.
It did not. No, and the power of Harsh Mentor here. We're seeing people adapt to the dominance of Nadu and play around the way that the Bant deck likes to win. So, Marnie, with that in mind, people knew that Nadu was on the agenda this weekend. Harsh Mentor is one of a few cards that people have brought to try to contest Nadu, and we've seen them rewarded for that. Just here with Brian Boss.
Yeah, I think we've seen Harsh Mentor even coming into the tournament. A lot of players knew that this was the best hate card against the Nadu deck. We saw it in the sideboard of many of the Ruby Storm decks who had a pretty bad weekend. But I think one of the key things that we saw here, as players did come ready for the Harsh Mentor in some cases, is having the green in his deck and allowing Brian to protect the Harsh Mentor using something like that Blossoming Defense really won up the strategy of being able to fight against the Bat Nadu deck, because ultimately that deck doesn't have that much interaction. They're going to make a Hail Mary attempt to get rid of the Harsh Mentor, and if you're able to just protect it once, that is usually enough.
That's a really good point. You don't need a huge number of disruptive or counter-disruptive elements to protect them, to protect your key threats from, the handful of potential answers this otherwise very linear combo deck is trying to put together. So this is the way to beat Bant Nadu. This is the way that you need to construct and configure your deck. You don't need a huge game plan for it, because there are multiple points of failure with the Nadu deck if it can't get its legs under it.
Right, and definitely this is a way to beat the Nadu deck. Of course, we're still very early into this modern format, so perhaps there are other more effective ways to attack the Nadu strategy. We have seen some matchups do better, like the Jeskai Control, but definitely seeing the aggressive creature decks having an avenue into the battle with Harsh Mentor, maybe some backup, it is cool to see another avenue of attacking the Nadu decks.
All right, well, I'm excited to see more of this deck, hopefully in future rounds. But right now, we're going to take a break. We've got Maria and the desk team standing by on the other side of it to set up our final round of play for today. We are going to name our top 8, and we want you here with us as we do. So stick around. On the other side of this, more Magic and the conclusion of play in day number 2 here at Pro Tour Modern Horizons 3.